You are most welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Real Impartation Moments on Tuesday Night Anatomy with Daniel Okwan. Today's section, I take you through an important aspect as far as systemic embryology is concerned. My friends, today I want to take you through the formation of the gut tube. Okay? Now, whenever I talk about the gut tube, my friends, I'm talking about the one which will form the gastrointestinal tract. That's what I'm talking about. Now, by the end of this meeting, we appreciate that this gut tube is differentiated into three areas by way of the foregut, the midgut, and of course, the hindgut. And we look at the criteria, okay, for differentiating these, three areas of the gut tube. We appreciate that. So my friends, without wasting my time, let's set the ball rolling, going through this. So we begin looking at the development of the gut tube. Development of the gut tube. My friends, one thing I want to take your mind to is around the second week of intrauterine life, I did a video where I explained that, yes, in the second week of intrauterine life, we usually talk about the week of 2, where, for instance, the embryo proper is differentiated, okay, into, having this kind of two, layers, the bilaminar embryonic disc, which we describe it as being the primitive embryonic disc, where we had, the hypoblast and of course the epiblast. We discussed that one. But I also told you that there's another mesoderm which is found outside this embryo proper, which we called it extra embryonic mesoderm. We discussed that one in the second week only. We talked about that one, extra embryonic mesoderm. Now remember that I told you, although there were some kind of controversies around it, I came to tell you that as regards the extra embryonic mesoderm, the source, okay, where it is coming from, it is coming from, of course, the primitive, what we call it, yolk sac, primitive yolk sac, which we said is also called a primary yolk sac. We discussed that. So that at the end of the day, because we used some portion of this primary yolk sac to form the extra embryonic mesoderm, the remaining portion of the yolk sac became, of course, the secondary yolk sac. Now, my friends, it's at this level of the secondary yolk sac that I'm in, because we are going to see another thing over here, okay, and I'm going to explain that one. Now, for us to appreciate the development of the gastrointestinal tract, one useful thing I want you to know is something we call craniocaudal folding of the embryo. Now, the embryo will fold cranially and of course caudally. So let's sketch out that one, and then I explain to you some important bits, and then we move on. Of course, this meeting, yes, I'm not going to tell you all about the foregut, midgut, and hindgut. It's going to be a series. I'll take you through all of them. So today is going to be an important aspect which you need to understand, okay? So that in future videos, yes, you really understand these things. So let's sketch out this. As the embryo folds, so let's say I have this as my embryo folded. So folding of my embryo. And my friends, what I want you to understand is that it's folding cranially and caudally. So I'm talking about craniocaudal folding. Craniocaudal folding of the embryo. Now, one thing that we will appreciate is that as this folds, okay, now what I'm going to see is that, yes, it will fold. Okay, so this is the embryo which is undergoing craniocaudal folding. And importantly, I want you to appreciate that. Now, what I want you to know is that some portion, okay, and that's what I'm trying to demonstrate over here. Okay, So what we are saying is that some portion of the yolk sac, this guy over here is what I'm interested in. This is the yolk sac, okay? Which also another portion, this is the secondary yolk sac, and another portion has been pinned out, okay, coming out. Okay, so let me say that now some portion has been pinned out coming down over here. Okay, so now we have some portion of the yolk sac over here. Now the remaining portion of the yolk sac in here is this guy which is going to form what we call the gut tube. Yes, and I want you to know that this is the one which is going to form the gut tube. And so whenever we talk about the gut tube, we are talking about what we call this portion is going to be the foregut. So I'm calling it FG, foregut. And I'm going to have this portion, which I call it midgut. And then I also have another portion, which is at the rear aspect, so I call it hindgut. Now I want you to appreciate that. For now, this is an important structure which I want you to know. Now you will see that an out portion structure from the hindgut that we find over here, yes, it's coming in. Now I want you to appreciate that it is the content over here by way of the yolk sac pinching out, coming down, okay, which is going to be, of course, source of nourishment for this gut, okay, for the embryo. What I see is that this area, this is actually the umbilical cord, and so it is having this kind of opening. Let me use this color to show. Now this is the umbilical cord. So I have the opening of this umbilical cord, Okay, so this is what we have. Now, you see an out portion structure also coming in here, okay, a diverticulum of the hindgut. Okay, and so my friends, this guy over here is the one which we call it allantois, and I want you to appreciate that. We call this guy allantois. Now, my friends, one thing I want you to become aware is that this allantois, okay, essentially the waste from the embryo, okay, may be temporarily stored over here. Okay, we will go into greater details of all these guys when I go through the hindgut with you. But one thing I want you to know is that waste will be stored temporarily over here. And my friend, that is why an extension or remnant of this allantois, which I want you to know because, of course, most times you may be asked, okay, this allantois will eventually give rise to something we call uracus. Okay, now sometimes people go in exam and of course, for instance, when they expect to see uracus, but they will be seeing allantois. Okay, so we have to look at some of these things. That an extension or remnant of this allantois over here, okay, is the uracus. And my friends, one thing that we know about postnatal life is that this uracus will be important in linking, of course, the umbilical cord to, of course, the urinary bladder. Okay, and one thing that we know about this uracus also, which I want to highlight is that it will give rise to what we call the median umbilical ligament. It will give rise to median umbilical ligaments. Median. Now last week we appreciated medial umbilical ligaments. Now I told you that they were actually remnants of the obliteration of the left and right umbilical arteries. This time I'm talking about median umbilical ligament, being of course a remnant of this uracus, and this uracus in turn is an extension or a remnant of the allantois. Yes, I want you to appreciate that. Now, not only that, we see another thing also coming out, and I told you that's of course the yolk sac, some portion of it going downwards. Okay, so this is the yolk sac. Okay, that we find over here. Let me put it down over here. That this guy over here is the yolk sac. Yolk sac. Okay. Now we see something. That still this primitive gut tube, this gut tube that we find over here, it still have the connection with this yolk sac over here. Okay, now let me make it clear for you to see it. This is the yolk sac. Okay, is still having a connection, okay, with, of course, the primitive gut tube over here. Via, mainly, we are talking about the mid gut. Okay, not the foregut, not the hindgut, but this time the midgut. Okay, so that's still there will be that kind of nourishment. My friends, we see this connection by way of this guy over here. This guy over here that we find over there is something that we call the vitello. Okay, so let's put that name down. This guy here is the vitello. Intestinal duct. Okay, something we can also call omphalo mesenteric duct. Okay, omphalo mesenteric duct. You can also call it as such. So there's the vitello-intestinal duct, which serves as a connection between the midgut and, of course, the yolk sac. Yes, it will develop around the 4th week of intrauterine life, but what we see is that around the 9th week of intrauterine life, where the placenta, yes, begins forming, then what will happen is that the placenta now eventually becomes the source of nourishment, okay, to, of course, the developing embryo. And therefore, this guy gets obliterated. This guy, by way of the vitello-intestinal duct, gets obliterated. But sometimes in the condition, for instance, we call it Merkel's diverticulum, okay? We appreciate some of these things better as we move along. Merkel's diverticulum, there is patent or persistent vitello-intestinal duct, which usually we don't see it unless, you know, of course, accidentally on ultrasound. Okay, it gets, revealed over there. You appreciate these things better as you move along. So now I want you to appreciate these things. Now, for now, the next thing I want to ask you is to tell us the contents of the umbilical cord. Contents of the umbilical cord. We've seen that open of the umbilical cord, we see certain traversing. So what are the other contents? We have other contents, yes. And so whenever we talk about the content of the umbilical cord, last week we appreciated some of them. Number one, we talked about the left and right umbilical arteries. So if I talk about the content of the umbilical cord, then my friends, I want you to put down left and right umbilical arteries. Left and right umbilical arteries. Left and right umbilical arteries. Is that all? No? Do we have an umbilical vein? Yes. I told you that the right umbilical vein regresses, but the left umbilical vein is left. That's what we said. Left is left by way of the umbilical veins. So we are going to see only the left, a single umbilical vein, that's the left umbilical vein. Now, is that all? No. Now, one thing is that postnatally, yes, we talk about sometimes you can take the umbilical cord, and of course, you take a section of it, okay, you study it histologically, and you see that, okay, the connective tissue, something we call mucous connective tissue. The umbilical cord has mucous connective tissue, or mucoid connective tissue, one of the embryonic connective tissues. And one thing that we know about this mucous connective tissue of the umbilical cord is that it will have a ground substance which is given a special name, it's an eponym, okay, and that's the guy we call Wharton's jelly. Wharton's jelly. Wharton's jelly. Okay, so Wharton's jelly will also be there. I want you to appreciate that. And we shouldn't forget about these guys also. Which one? We mentioned allantois. So allantois is also a content in there. And then, my friends, we talk about the vitello-intestinal duct. Vitello-intestinal duct. Let me call it VID. Vitello-intestinal duct. So, my friends, these are the contents I want you to appreciate. Okay, very good. So once we are through with this, then of course we have enough grounds, okay, to move forward and of course explain other concepts to you. Now, my friends, having seen this, let me, talk about this one. We said that we are going to have the differentiation of this gut tube. Yes. And we said that we are going to have, assuming, if I take it this way, just to sketch out that this is the gut tube. And I want you to appreciate this. This is very examinable. At least this, the initial bits, I want you to appreciate this. Now, this gut tube that we are saying that we've differentiated it into three. So let me say there's one portion here and then another portion here. So, namely, what we have what we call the foregut, FG. We have the midgut, NG. We have the hindgut. Okay, that's what we have. And then one thing I want you to appreciate is that I want you to know about the junction. Okay, between the foregut and then the hindgut, there's a junction. Yes. And my friends, that junction. So let me see. There's a junction over here. Okay, there's a junction, okay, at the level of the foregut going to that of the midgut. There's another junction separate the midgut from the hindgut. What are these junctions? I want you to appreciate that. And my friends, whenever we talk about the junction between the foregut and the midgut, your answer that I want you to always put down is at the level of the major duodenal papilla. Major duodenal papilla. Yes, I want you to appreciate that. Now, some people erroneously talk about the ligament of trees. No, that's not true. Now, what's the reason? The reason is that the ligament of trees clinically is used to distinguish or separate the upper gastrointestinal tract from the lower gastrointestinal tract. So that, for instance, if there's a bleeding happening above the ligament of trees, it becomes an upper GIT bleeding. And a bleeding below the ligament of trees becomes a lower GIT bleeding. I want you to appreciate that. The answer that I want to give is the major duodenal papilla. And one thing we know about the major duodenal papilla is located in the second part of the duodenum. Yes, I want you to appreciate that. And then, how about the midguts and then the hindguts? What separates them? My friends, is at the junction. Okay, so I want you to tell me that it is at the junction of right to third portion and left 1/3 portion of the transverse colon. I want you to appreciate that it is at the junction, okay, between the right 2/3 and then left 1/3 portion of the transverse colon. Some people may say the proximal 2/3 portion and then the distal 1/3 portion of the transverse colon. No problem. Yes, I want you to appreciate that. That's the junction where we are going to have this. Now, what is the criteria? Or what are the criteria in telling that this is a foregut, this is a midgut, this is a hindgut? It is purely based on the blood supply, the arterial blood supply, for instance. So, for instance, yes, the gut tube, yes, it will be in the abdomen, and that is why I will be interested in, of course. So, let's say this is the abdominal aorta. This guy over here is my abdominal aorta. Abdominal aorta. Okay. And my friends, the blood vessel, a branch of this aorta, which supplies the foregut and foregut only. Okay, is this guy over here? Let me put it this way. Okay, coming in here. Okay, so the blood will be flowing from this aorta through this guy to the foregut. And who is this guy? My friends, I want you to know that we are talking about the celiac trunk. Celiac trunk. So whenever you see any portion of the gut tube postnatally and its blood supply is a branch of the celiac trunk, then you know that it's a derivative of the foregut. Yes. And then my friends, also from the midgut, there will be another branch coming out. Okay, and then also draining into this midgut. Okay, and it is also a branch of this abdominal aorta. My friends, we call it superior mesenteric artery. Superior mesenteric artery to the midgut. Then how about the hindgut? My friends, the hindgut is by the superior, then this guy is by inferior mesenteric artery. Okay, so I want you to appreciate this. These are the distinguishing features of the gut tube. Okay, so the blood supply tells us which portion of the gut tube we are talking about. So if it's the foregut, it is supplied by branches of the celiac trunk. If it's the midgut, it is supplied by branches of superior mesenteric artery. If it is the hindgut, by branches of the inferior mesenteric artery. I want you to appreciate that. Now, having seen this, then we move on. I want to just put a little bit of attention on the foregut. Subsequently, we'll be going to that of the midgut. So now I'm going to end with this portion, which I'm going to explain to you by way of the foregut. Now, I'll be explaining other details to these ones. I'll be taking them individually, but there's a general big picture thing that I want to convey to you. Now, if you look at the foregut, one thing I want you to know about this is that the gut tube came from the yolk sac. If you remember, look at the way some portion of the yolk sac, okay, formed this, gut tube, some portion went down there. If you remember, yes. And whenever you talk about yolk sac, okay, it is endodermal. Therefore, it tells me that by way of the gut tube, it will be endodermal. So if I ask you, yes, the origin of, for instance, the stomach, the duodenum, whatever, is endoderm. There will be endodermal. I want you to appreciate that. Now, right now, what I want you to do is that we want to look at the foregut. Now, the foregut doesn't come, yes, alone. It gives off some, let me say, derivatives. Okay? Some, appendages arise from it. And so it means that these derivatives will also be endodermal. I want you to appreciate that. And so let's look at the foregut. Now, if I have this as my foregut, now that's what I will see. Now those are foregut, which we see certain things extended out of the main body. Yes, so this guy is the foregut. Okay, but we see certain things coming out of the main body of the foregut. These are derivatives of the foregut, and I want you to appreciate that. Now this one, from here, there's the ventral aspect in front, okay? So there's anterior, and then when I come this way, there's the posterior. Now this area is cranial, so as I come this way, I'm going to the caudal region, okay? Now this, the first thing I find over here at the ventral aspect which goes downwards, is like if you look at my nose, you know, my nose at the ventral aspect is going downwards. Okay, so this guy over here is the first derivative that we find at the ventral surface, okay, of the foregut emerging from this area. This guy is known as the respiratory bud. Respiratory bud. Now, whenever we talk about the respiratory bud, one thing I want you to know for now, I'll take my time, I'll go through the development of the respiratory tree, I'll go through that one. But one thing I want you to know is that the respiratory bud is the one which gives rise to the lower respiratory tract. Yes. The lower respiratory tract will be coming from, of course, this respiratory bud. Okay, talk about the trachea, the bronchi, okay, the bronchioles, okay, the alveoli, they will be coming from this respiratory bud. I want you to appreciate that. Then, so it means that those components will be endodermal. And then below it, okay, as if, you know, that's my nose, my tongue is going this way, going upwards. So going this way, this guy over here, also from a ventral aspect, is something we call the hepatic bud. Hepatic bud. I want you to appreciate that. This guy is the hepatic bud. Hepatic bud. It means that this hepatic bud will be relevant in giving rise to the liver. But my friends, there's a catch over here. I want you to appreciate that there's a big catch here. The reason is that last time I told you that the lateral plate mesoderm gets differentiated, okay, into somatopleuric and sphygmopleuric components with the presence of a coelom in between them, the intra-embryonic coelom. Now, my friends, this time around, what I want you to appreciate is that I told you that the cranialmost portion of the embryo, the lateral plate mesoderm is not differentiated with the help of the mesoderm. The undifferentiated lateral plate mesoderm, where there's no coelom in between them, I told you that is that guy which you call a septum transversum. Septum transversum. And I even went on to tell you some of the derivatives of septum transversum. I told you that it will be relevant in giving rise to some component of the liver. Which portion of the liver? I told you about the stroma of the liver, including the Kappa cells and the hematopoietic cells of the liver. I told you about that one. So it means that this guy, okay, if you said septum transversum, that is mesodermal, intra-embryonal mesodermal, differentiated portion. But this one is developed from the gut tube and from that matter yolk sac, which is endodermal. So whenever I talk about development of the liver, one thing I want you to appreciate, development of the liver will have dual origin. Liver will have dual origin. That's number one, the hepatic bud. Let me put it number one over here. Is the hepatic bud, and I'll go to number two. Now, the hepatic bud, which is endodermal over here, let me put it down over here. Now, these are the first MCQs you may be given, that is the endodermal portion. Okay, so what I want you to appreciate is that hepatic bud will give rise to what? My friends, it will give rise to the hepatocytes, the bile canaliculi. Okay, it will give rise to, of course, all these bile duct, interlobular hepatic bile duct. Okay, anything about the bile duct. So let me say that it will give rise to hepatocytes, and I want you to appreciate that it will give rise to hepatocytes, and then also the biliary apparatus. Biliary apparatus. Okay, biliary apparatus. The gallbladder itself is going to hold the bowel. Okay, the common bile ducts. Okay, common hepatic ducts, right and left hepatic bile ducts. Okay, all these things, the cystic ducts, anything about the bile, as far as the biliary apparatus is concerned, will be coming from the hepatic bile here. But my friends, when I look at the connective tissue of the liver, okay, which we call the stroma of the liver, it will be coming from something we call septum transversum. Septum transversum. So this is the second derivative of the liver, septum transversum. And whenever we talk about septum transversum, I'm talking about it giving rise to what we call stroma of the liver. And we don't end there. We talk about the Kappa cells. Kappa cells. Kappa cells together with hematopoietic or hemopoietic cells of the liver. Okay, so I want you to appreciate that. Now, so that's the liver. We will take our time and look at the dynamics. Now, this guy over here will be giving rise to the pancreas. And I want to appreciate that the pancreas, two of them, two things. So one over here, one here. The one in front here is the one which, because in front is ventral. So this guy is known as ventral. Ventral pancreatic bag. And then the one behind is to the dorsal aspect, which we call it dorsal pancreatic bag. Okay, so I have the dorsal pancreatic bag, which is at a higher level. It's a bit cranial and it is longer compared to the caudal place, although ventrally, okay, smaller one, and that is the what we call the ventral pancreatic bag. I want you to appreciate that. Now, there's something about the pancreas. Let me use a few minutes to tell you about that one, and then finally I go to something that's, and I will bring this class to a close. Now, regarding the pancreas, okay, now assuming there's the foregut, but I'm interested in the caudal region where it's giving rise to. Okay, so there's a portion of the, as in the foregut, we're giving some portion of the duodenum. Remember that the duodenum will have dual origin, a portion from the foregut, a portion from the midgut. Okay, so now this guy over here, okay, is the one which we are calling it dorsal, behind, dorsal, we mentioned it, pancreatic bag, dorsal pancreatic bag. And then the one in front here is the ventral pancreatic bag. Okay, so please appreciate that. Now, this is what we see. For now, to make it a bit easy for us to go through this, what I want you to know is that this dorsal pancreatic bag, let me use an abbreviation for it, DPB, DPB, dorsal pancreatic, and then the ventral, let me call it VPB. Okay, so whenever I talk about DPB, I'm talking about a dorsal pancreatic bud. Whenever I talk about VPD, I'm talking about a ventral pancreatic bud. Now what we see is that there will be the ducts, they will have their respective ducts developing within them. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about the fact that there are ducts developing in there. So it means that this guy over here will be called dorsal pancreatic duct. The ducts, okay, of dorsal pancreatic bud. So dorsal pancreatic. Then this one also have its duct, which we call it ventral pancreatic duct. I'm talking about the duct, D, duct. The bud is B. Okay. Now, what we see, now one thing is that usually rotation will take place. There's going to be rotation. Okay, there's going to be a rotation taking place. Normally, that's what we're talking about. But this rotation, okay, it's not only just rotation taking place. There's some kind of differential growth which takes place in this portion of what we call the foregut, which is going to form a portion of the duodenum. Now, initially, duodenum, there will be canalization. I'll explain these things into detail. Later, it will, the canal will get occluded due to proliferation of cells in there. Something which, if there's no recanalization, it can lead to atresia of the duodenum, for instance, which immediately after birth, the child may vomit. Okay, those things are there. I'm not going into that for now. We will deal with all those things in this series. But the point I want to convey over here is that one portion of this foregut, the caudal portion which I found over here on the foregut here, what will happen is that one portion will undergo perfect growth and the other portion will undergo apoptosis, so that gradually they will get to meet. So we are talking about rotation, but precisely we call it differential growth taking place. And this is an important thing which I want you to appreciate, that from here, this is what we are going to see. And I want to make this one very simple for us. And so that's what we will see. Okay, so that's what we see. So we get to a point where this one has grown to meet it over here. So that's all. We have our respective ducts in there. So that's what we have. Okay, so now the key thing is that we want to form our ducts. So first, we want to form, you know that in real, time sections, okay, you may be asked to, for instance, locate the major pancreatic duct, which has an eponym, the duct of Wesson. So now let's put those important points over here. The first thing, we want to see formation of major pancreatic duct. Of Wesson. Major pancreatic ducts of Wesson. We want to appreciate that. And my friends, this major pancreatic duct of Wesson, okay, will be arising from what? And we want to appreciate that. Now, what is going to happen is there's going to be an anastomosis between these ducts. Between which ducts? The ducts of the ventral pancreatic bud and then the ducts of the dorsal pancreatic bud. There's going to be an anastomosis. So now let me just go through this to show you the connection. Now this highlighted region shows you the major duodenal, major pancreatic duct of Wesson. And one thing I want you to understand is that the major pancreatic duct of Wilson opens at the level of the major duodenal papilla. I want you to appreciate that. At the level of the major duodenal papilla. Okay, so this guy over here, which I'm trying to show you here, is the major duodenal papilla. And that goes on to explain why I told you that a junction between, of course, the foregut and then the midgut is at the level of the major duodenal papilla. Okay, so that's the point. And then we have another portion over here which opens at the level of the minor, which is at the cranial region. So this one is called minor duodenal papilla. Minor duodenal papilla. Okay, so we want to appreciate that. So now, my friends, let's appreciate it. So it means this guy over here becomes the minor or the accessory pancreatic duct of Santorini. We are going to see that. So now let's look at the components of the major pancreatic duct. What did we get? It is formed from what? The ventral pancreatic duct. Okay, so let's do ventral pancreatic duct is one of the formation. And then what else? Now you see that there's an anastomosis between these ducts. So an anastomosis between, of course, the ventral pancreatic duct and of course the dorsal pancreatic. So I will talk about it. Anastomosis, although some we don't talk about those one, but I'll talk about it. Anastomosis between ventral pancreatic duct and the dorsal pancreatic duct. Now we are not done. Then the real portion by way of the continuation of this major pancreatic duct is who? Now this whole thing is a dorsal pancreatic duct. By which portion? The distal portion, distal part of dorsal pancreatic duct. Okay, so these are the components of the major pancreatic duct of Wilson. So my friends, quickly, how about the minor pancreatic duct of Wilson, the one over here? Minor pancreatic duct or accessory pancreatic duct. And my friends, that one also has an eponym, something we call duct of Santorini. Santorini. Okay? It's formed by what? Okay, so for example, if I ask the example, what's the answer? We are still talking about what? The dorsal pancreatic duct, but this time which portion? The proximal portion. So my friends, simply your answer is the proximal portion of the dorsal pancreatic duct. It's as simple as that. Now, having seen the duct system, how about the major parts of the pancreas? And I want you to appreciate that one also. The major parts of the pancreas. Now, look at this. Very simple. If I want to know, this is the lower portion of the head of the pancreas. This one will form the lower portion of the head of the pancreas. So the lower part together with something called the uncinate process. Okay, so whenever I talk about the lower, by way of the ventral pancreatic bud. This time is the bud. I'm not talking about the duct. The bud. Then what are you talking about? The bud. The lower portion, which we are calling the ventral pancreatic bud, is giving rise to what and what? Yes, my friends, is giving rise to lower head. It's the lower portion. So we're talking about lower head together with the uncinate. Now we see the uncinate process of the pancreas. Yes. Okay, the lower portion together with the uncinate process of the pancreas. Now, how about the dorsal pancreatic bud? The dorsal pancreatic bud is very simple. Yes. All the other portions, except the lower portion of the pancreas and of course the uncinate process, lower head. So what are the components? The upper head of the pancreas, we talk about the neck, we talk about the body, and then the tail of the pancreas. It's as simple as that. Now, finally, to bring this class to a close, let me just touch on something briefly which I want you to know, and then in the course of our next meeting, this is going to be a series. I will explain all these important details to you. So now, I want you to really understand this concept. You know, sometimes we talk about a lot of things. Now, regarding the stomach, I want you to appreciate this. Regarding the stomach, we know that the stomach now let's say this is the stomach. Okay, now one thing we know about the stomach is that it presents with some food of peritoneum, you know, mesentery, and one thing that we find about it is that it will have this guy over here, okay, is the ventral, okay, it has mesentery in front, and this is the ventral mesogastrum. And for now, this is going to be the last thing. The next time I will explain and go into greater detail of these things. Now the one below will be called what? Okay, if there's the ventral, then we are talking about the dorsal at the posterior aspect. So we say dorsal mesogastrum. So the stomach doesn't have only ventral, it also has dorsal mesogastrum. And so what we see that it will go around it. Let me just put it this way. And this one will also be relevant in appreciating the peritoneum, which I'll talk about it in the course of our series. So we have the stomach having the ventral mesogastrum and of course the dorsal mesogastrum. For now, what I want you to appreciate is that developing between the two layers of this ventral mesogastrum, okay, is the liver. And I want you to appreciate that is the liver. The liver will be developing in the liver. Okay? And this time around, developing in the left layer, I want you to appreciate that left layer of the dorsal mesogastrum, the left layer is the spleen. Okay? Now appreciate this. Now once you've appreciated this, what I want to convey to you becomes easy. So it means that this area is anterior, this is the antereventral, anterior. And then this area is posterior. Don't forget that we are doing the gastrointestinal tract, and then we are in the region of the abdomen. The stomach is in the abdomen. So I want you to appreciate this, and then let's think through it. Now, one thing we are aware is that whenever you talk about ventral mesogastrum, and I ask you, what is the embryonic origin of this ventral mesogastrum? I'm sure you've not forgot that we talked about the derivative of septum transversum. We mentioned stroma of the liver, including the capsular cells, okay, the hematopoietic cells. We mentioned these things. I also went on to tell you about the fibrous pericardium, the central tendon of the diaphragm, and I also told you the ventral mesogastrum. Ventral mesogastrum. So if you remember the last time I told you that for now, you should put down that the derivative of this ventral mesogastrum, okay, will be the lesser omentum. I told you about that one. So it means that this time around, we'll be talking about lesser omentum over here. I want you to appreciate this for now. So what are the components? Okay, what are the components? The derivative, it means this one is derived from the septum transversum. septum transversum. And what we want to appreciate is that what are the derivatives of this ventral mesogastrum? Now, let's think about it this way. Now, what is anterior? We are in the abdomen, anterior abdominal wall. Yes, we have liver over here. You know that the liver is connected to the anterior abdominal wall, the posterior aspect of the anterior abdominal wall, via a ligament. You know that ligament? The falciform ligament. Falciform ligament. So it means if you are talking about derivatives of ventral mesogastrum, your first point is the falciform ligament. Falciform ligament. Which one thing we know about it is that in the lower free margin of this falciform ligament, we see another ligament over there related to the liver, the round ligament of the liver, ligamentum teres hepatis, which last week we got to know that is derived from the left umbilical vein. We appreciated that one. So we are talking about the falciform ligament over there, derived from ventral mesogastrum. Now, is that all known? If you look at the anterior abdominal wall now, even if you look at the diaphragm goes in down in this manner. So we have some portion, the liver is also connected to some portion of the abdominal wall by way of the liver. And my friends, what's the connection between this, liver, especially the superior aspect of the liver, and then the diaphragm? And you know about those guys, the coronary and of course the triangular ligament. So they are also derivative of this ventral mesogastrum. So we are talking about coronary ligaments, we are talking about a triangular ligaments. Then don't forget, in the beginning of teaching you septum transversum, I told you that one of the derivatives is this ventral mesogastrum, and I told you to put down lesser omentum. So it means lesser omentum is also here. Why? Why is this so? Because this portion, okay, from the liver to the stomach, there's a ligament, okay, connecting them. And what's the name of that ligament? Lesser omentum. Lesser omentum. Now, one thing I want you to appreciate about lesser omentum is that lesser omentum, there's a connection between the liver and the stomach. And the name of that ligament is hepatogastric. You know, gastric has to do with stomach. Liver, we are talking about hepato. So we talk about hepatogastric. And not only that, it doesn't end there, it goes to the first part of duodenum. Okay, hepatoduodenal ligaments. These are the things that we are talking about. Hepatoduodenal. Yes. So these are the derivatives I want you to know as far as ventral mesogastrum is concerned. Yes, it's as simple as that. Now finally, for dorsal mesogastrum, what are the derivatives? Okay, it becomes very easy for you to appreciate it. Dorsal mesogastrum, what are the derivatives? And that's our last thing for today. Dorsal mesogastrum. Now, I just want you to appreciate why all these things are derived from these ones. You just have to understand so that you don't just have to cram these guys. Now, let's see it. In the case of the dorsal mesogastrum, one thing I want you to appreciate is that it's derived from lateral plate mesoderm. Yes, mesentery, lateral plate mesoderm. So, what are the derivatives? The first thing I want you to appreciate is that unlike in the case of ventral mesogastrum, which we talked about lesser omentum, this guy we are talking about greater omentum. Greater omentum. Yes, I want you to appreciate that. We are talking about greater omentum. Okay. Now, usually when we talk about greater omentum, there are a lot of fraternities around, and I want you to appreciate that. Now, the first thing, usually when we talk about greater omentum, the first thing that comes into mind, okay, is from the stomach to the colon, gastrocolic, okay? So now, for now, let's do that, gastrocolic ligaments. Yes. Now, we are not done. There's this, from the stomach, okay? Now, think about it from this viewpoint. If there's a ventral aspect, We appreciate the stomach, the development of the stomach, and we appreciate it. Now, this is the ventral aspect. That is where we have the lesser curve. And because we know that the lesser curve, that's where the lesser momentum attaches by way of the hepatogastric ligament. That's where it attaches. It means that this area becomes the greater curve of the stomach. If it's the greater curve, that's where the greater momentum by way of the gastric ligament attaches. And then also, if I go to the fundus of the stomach, attached to the left component of the left dome of the, I'm talking about the diaphragm, there's another ligament. What do you think is the name? The stomach, fundus of the stomach, and of course, the diaphragm. So we are talking about the gastrophrenic ligament. Gastrophrenic. Now, that's not all. Gastrophrenic. Okay, I want you to appreciate that. Now, if you look at this one over here, from the stomach to the spleen, there's a ligament over here. And what do you think is the name of that ligament? Gastrosplenic. Gastrosplenic ligament. Gastrosplenic. Something we can also call gastrolyidal. Anytime you hear the word lyidal, it got to do with the spleen. But usually, what you'll be seeing is gastrosplenic ligaments. And then also now, as we get into the posterior aspect, then there will be left kidney over there. Remember, I told you that this spleen will develop in the left layer of the dorsal mesogastrum. And that is why there will be the spleen over there to the left. And I will tell you, I will explain these things better. And that is why, yes, it's related to the left kidney around over here. So what's the name of the ligament which will connect the spleen to the left kidney? Yes, we are talking about linorenal ligaments. I've already told you that whenever you hear the word lino, we are talking about the spleen. My friends, this is where we will end, of course, this meeting, and we will move on and explain all the other things. This is a series which I'm going to take my time and then walk you through it. I'm very grateful for your time this evening. Have a good night, all of you, and may the good Lord richly bless you. Amen.